We have debated the nature of the object since planetfall, but it wasn't until it began to slow and change course that we were certain it was a ship. A ship from Earth, launched long after we thought it was impossible. Its course clear and its arrival imminent. Celebrations swept the colony in anticipation of reunion with our brethren. All attempts to contact the vessel, however, were met with silence. They were either unable to respond or did not wish to. As we watched its approach, we prepared for any eventuality. Now, the wait is over.
Welcome, fellow bastards, to Sid Meier's Civilization Beyond Earth Rising Tide. This is a new expansion pack for a game that I felt was lacking. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great in a lot of respects, but I sort of felt, they'd only just really got Civ 5 into a place where it was offering interesting gameplay. I love the sci-fi setting. I think the greatest strength of this game is the replacement of a tech tree with a tech web, because it's not constrained by history, the idea that you have to invent the wheel before you invent the next thing, and there's sort of this, it branches in places, but it's essentially a path that everybody follows. This is very much more, you create your own civilization to a much deeper degree, because you manipulate your bonuses and your research to match your particular situation, and I think that really ticks the box of what games like this should offer. What Rising Tide offers really is greater synergy between the different, what used to be ideologies, let's say. I just realised how loud this game is. Let me see if I can turn that down for you. There we go, that's probably a bit nicer. I liked the idea that you unlocked unique units in the first game. Well, not necessarily unique, but they were unique to that ideology. You could choose to harmonise with the environment, you could choose to dominate it, or you could choose to stick rigidly, I suppose, to the old way of doing things, to keep the purity of the human race. In this game, that's still there, but there's also like a synergy between the synergies, and it opens up some really interesting tactical possibilities. I like the way you can mix and match to create a civilization that's uniquely your own. So without much more waffle, we're going to dive in. Let's set up a game. We'll play normal difficulty. I'm not great at this game. Standard game pace. Still need to practice that talking. And massive planet size. There are some new sponsors. I think, now someone's probably going to correct me here, but I know in the base game Pan Asian Cooperative felt very OP. They were very overpowered. They still are, I think. The first wonder built in every city is free. That means if a wonder you're building is the first wonder in that city, it takes 1 turn to build. Given the bonuses you get from wonders, which maybe are not so decisive to gameplay as they were in older Civ games, it's still a big boost. I think it's a massive advantage, but I suppose the drag effect would be it encourages you to have a very large empire. You know, you can't really go for the old narrow gameplay style where, you know, you maybe have 2 to 4 cities and you focus on developing your culture and your science as a way of gaining victory. Anyway, I will highlight the new sponsors on the way down, but let's just go over the particular sponsors that are included in the game. The sponsor is basically the country or political entity that funded your exodus from Earth, and it's kind of like picking the nation in the old game. So Al-Falah is a new faction in the expansion. This is I'm probably being very insensitive here, I have no idea, but I think it's, I mean, obviously the name implies it comes from the sort of the Middle and Near East, you know, around Saudi Arabia maybe, you know, between Saudi Arabia and Syria, that sort of area. I would describe it very much as an Arabian faction, but I don't know the lore in the game as to whether it also encompasses other areas. ARC is the American Reclamation Corporation. Actually, I've just skipped a step here. Al-Falah has a bonus, which is yield from city developments increased by 150%. That's actually really, really good. What I find in this game is you have health instead of happiness. That's the first point I should raise. And I never struggled to manage happiness in the old games. In this, unless I'm speccing into harmony with the environment, I struggle very much so with health. And if you're running negative health, then you're suffering an efficiency problem. This helps to offset that, but also if you are running harmony or you're managing your health problems very, very well, then this bonus of 150% is massive. You know, in terms of resources that you're harvesting, in terms of maybe power generators you build to add energy to your bank account. I mean, you don't have currency here so much as you have energy, and economically speaking, that's a huge boon, having that particular bonus. ARC is the American Reclamation Corporation. This is North America. I'm ambiguous as to whether this faction includes Canada or Mexico. I'm guessing it seems to imply that maybe it does, but I'm not sure. Their bonus pertains to covert operations. They complete 30% faster and require 1 less intrigue level to attempt. Covert ops is, I don't use it as much as I should, but there's real potential there. It's not like covert ops used to be in the old games. They have a much more practical effect now, down to the level of bombings or placing beacons to attract siege worms. It's not a bad bonus to have, and in fact it's something that can enable you to level the playing field if you're, let's say you're trapped in a less than ideal situation and you need to find a way to stem the progress of a more powerful neighbour. It's also a good way to ensure your continued dominance if you're in a strong position. Pan-Asian Cooperative, that I believe is based around China, the Koreas maybe. No, actually I think Chungsu is based around the Koreas. Pan-Asian Cooperative, I'm not entirely sure then. I think it's China-centric, probably, and obviously will it's sort of like it strikes me as a federation, I suppose, of Asian nations in China's sphere of influence. Let's look at it that way. And we've already talked about their particular bonus. They also get +1 diplomatic capital from Wonders, which again is a good bonus. Diplomatic capital is what you use in the new diplomacy system. My big gripe with Civ games has always been the diplomacy system feels very hollow. A lot of the decisions opposing factions make didn't really seem to make a lot of sense. That's all gone now. I'm going to show you all that when time comes. North Sea Alliance is there's some debate actually in the community as to how this works. It seems to be a Scottish-centric alliance. The leader is a Scot. There's a lot of talk, reference to Aberdeen, almost as sort of Aberdeen and Amsterdam as being influential parts of the alliance. But the debate really is whether the rest of what makes up the UK at present comes under the influence of Franco-Iberia, because initially when this game came out, a lot of the talk on the forums that I saw suggested that England, Wales fell into the sphere of Franco-Iberia, but I'm not sure if that's canon or not. Feel free to correct me below. But the North Sea Alliance includes for definite Scotland, I believe also Ireland, Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and probably, I would guess, Finland. It also includes the Netherlands. It may also include Belgium, but I would be inclined to suggest that being a bilingual nation, but one that has a strong French influence, I'm guessing that falls under Franco-Iberia. It's debatable as to whether the rest of the UK is included, but I would be inclined to say so. I would be inclined to say it's UK, Ireland, and the Scandinavian countries. They may make planetfall at sea, if able. The advantage to making planetfall at sea is offset by a disadvantage. The advantage is you can move your cities. The problem is when you're moving your cities, they're not doing anything else. They're not producing anything. That's the focus. However, when they move, that's how they expand territory. That's how you expand your borders. The borders don't grow like they do with land cities, where the borders will sort of push themselves out culturally. You set your borders by basically claiming territory with your cities at sea. Aquatic cities have a 50% more combat strength and cost 50% less to move. So that gives you, it's a very much naval focused faction sponsor. Very much like England used to be in the old game. I think it's always important to have one or two naval powers. Previously, it didn't strike me as a particularly legit way to go because I felt the naval section, in terms of the unit tree, was a bit sparse. It's a bit better with the expansion pack. I've never really been a big naval player, but I'm open to sort of experimenting with that. Franco-Iberia is centered around France and Spain. I'll try and move a bit faster through these. They get 1 free virtue for every 10 virtues earned with culture, so that's very much like France used to be. The Slavic Federation, this is one of my favourites to play actually. They start with 4 petroleum, titanium and geothermal resources. You can't put a price on how important those things are, first of all. They're really important commodities. Second of all, the orbital units, the requirements to build them is reduced by 1. I think it also used to be that they stayed up in the atmosphere longer. In the atmosphere, what am I talking about? In orbit longer. Slavic Federation is obviously Russian-centric, but I believe it also includes Poland, Belarus, Georgia, a lot of the old Eastern Bloc nations. It's a very powerful faction. There's a lot to like about playing as them. They strike me as very, very flexible, and you can't underestimate. People who are not really put too many hours into this game will always underestimate how effective orbital units are, but they really are. Chung Su is a new faction. I believe they're focused around the Korean Peninsula. They start with 1 free covert agent. Each successful covert operation in a foreign city rewards 10 science, and they, like the North Sea Alliance and Australia, are very naval leaning empires, which is an interesting dynamic. I'd have hated it if it was just 1 or 2 naval factions. The fact there's 3, I think, really makes the naval combat element interesting. That's a good set of bonuses. I think it also encourages you to work counter to the ARC, so I'm liking the direction they're taking things. Australia is an alliance between Australia, New Zealand and Polynesia, I believe. I guess it also includes Indonesia, maybe, Malaysia. I'm not entirely sure, but 2 free trade route slots in the capital and 1 free trade route slot in all other cities. That is massive. It also encourages you to go very naval, I think. It encourages you to have sea trade lanes as well as land. But that is huge. That's, again, up there with the Slavic Federation as one of my absolute favourites to play because I think it just sets you up. Kavithan Protectorate. I think these guys actually include Indonesia, if I'm right. It's centered around India, Pakistan, the nations in that particular area. Culture and energy costs to acquire new city plots are reduced by 30%. That encourages a very expansionist play style. Not really the way I play, but there are advantages. It does grant you access, I suppose, to a lot of land from which to draw resources, a lot of expansion. It's another, like the Pan-Asian Cooperative, it does sort of lend itself quite well to a player going for a large number of cities. Integer is a Germanic faction, obviously centered on Germany, but it includes Austria, I believe Switzerland as well, very Central European, possibly also includes Italy. Agreements cost 50% less diplomatic capital. Purchasing units and buildings cost 25% less diplomatic capital. Again, that's a huge bonus. That's really, really good. Depending on your playstyle, of course, but the new diplomacy system offers massive benefits in the way that trade also does. If you're able to capitalize on trade and diplomatic agreements, you're set. You can... Fighting over some resources is a lot less necessary than it used to be, and this is partly the reason why. Brasilia, obviously focused on Brazil, but it's very much a pan-South American faction. War score points increased by 30%, gain 1 diplomatic capital for each unit killed in combat. This is, I suppose, kind of like the Slavic Federation, in that it encourages a very aggressive foreign policy. You're going to be doing quite a bit of fighting to sort of make the best of your faction traits. Finally, the African Union, pretty self-explanatory, very interesting faction to play. Plus 10% food growth in cities when healthy. All specialist citizens produce 1 extra yield. Again, very good set of bonuses. Very, very useful faction to pick. I think it offers an interesting advantage. Starvation is a real problem, as is managing your health. If you can get on top of your health problem, then your starvation problem will more than solve itself. And having an abundance of food is one of the many things that affect diplomatic relations with the other factions, because now they make decisions based on much more pragmatic concerns. If you're able to manage well, you don't have to be intimidating, you don't have to have vast science, but if your people are happy, well-fed and healthy, that actually encourages good relations with some factions. So, who are we going to play as? Well, obviously, since this is my first playthrough, we've got to keep it with the homeboys, the North Sea Alliance, I think. Next up, you choose your colonists. This basically decides the people that come on your expedition to the New World, as it were. Scientists, refugees, aristocrats, engineers, or artists. I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to play yet, but it's a difficult choice. I think I'm going to take engineers. Production never hurts. Then you choose your spacecraft. A continental surveyor will reveal all coastlines on a map, which I guess is quite useful for a naval-focused faction. Retrograde thrusters enables you to choose a wider landing zone, because as you know, your spawn point is basically randomized. Tectonic scanner means you don't have to research technology to see petroleum, geothermal and titanium resources. Again, 3 super important resources that you want to try and have some within your borders, and this gives you an advantage in that the same way as the Slavic Federation don't need to fight for these things at all initially because they've already got them. Being able to see them means you can make informed decisions regarding how you expand your borders, where it makes sense to be. Fusion reactor begins with 100 energy, and a lifeform sensor reveals alien nests on the map. I tend to play very much ignoring the aliens as far as possible. I tend to sway towards the Harmony playstyle, simply because it enables me to manage my health better. It also offers some very, very cool units in the late game. But I think I'm going to be doing things differently this time. I'm going to pick Tectonic Scanner. That's where we're going to go. Now the cargo, we can take hydroponics, begin with extra population in your first city. A laboratory gives you the pioneering technology. Raw materials begins with a clinic in your first city. Begin with a soldier unit, begin with a worker unit. That's always tough. That is a really tough call, because you don't know where you're going to land. You don't know if you need a soldier unit early on. Also, pioneering is a good technology to start with. That enables you to expand. I'm going to go with a worker unit and just hope that it doesn't get killed. And we're going to rescan for planets, because I don't like the idea of a fungal Terran world. Primordial, Frigid. I've not played Frigid yet. Cochise 602b, a world with large land masses separated by oceans and some smaller islands. I prefer that. I don't like the one giant continent. I don't like the many tiny islands. Terran for me is the way to go, because it enables all kinds of empires to flourish. If you don't have a naval focus, or you don't like naval play, then Atlantean is going to set you at a disadvantage. Or if your particular faction doesn't lend itself well to high naval production, you're just not going to be able to take advantage of those things. Likewise, the one giant continuous landmass is a problem, because first of all, it encourages a lot of content. It does a lot of combat. It encourages you to fight over resources. It artificially shortens the length of the game in my book, and it makes the world a bit less interesting. So we're going to go for a frigid Terran world. Let's see where we land. I'm afraid this first video is only going to probably include the first 2 or 3 turns, simply because I'm trying to keep these videos at half an hour, but I'll probably record some more for you as we go along. Yeah, see, it's all very Scottish focused, which is interesting. You don't normally, speaking as someone from a Scots family, it's very interesting, because normally England and Britain become homogenized, especially to people in other parts of the world, and they think of them interchangeably. Whereas Wales is a fucking fantastic country. If you've never been, you should go to Wales. It's great. Cornwall was once a country as well, and it's still, in my book, it still feels culturally different in some ways. Britain's a great place. I think it is a nation of nations, more so than many others that have formed out of what used to be smaller nations. I mean, Germany is a good example. Germany has obviously the federal system. It's been united and divided and reunited and stuff, but you speak to people here in Germany, and very few people will identify as a Prussian or a Bavarian necessarily. I mean, some people will, but what you get in Britain is people statistically will report their nationality as English, Scottish, Welsh, or a mix thereof. Cornish now as well has been recognised, which obviously it absolutely should be. Manx is another one. I am new to Rising Tide, so let's do that.
I am equipped to
so it's just great to see a game. It's very much how America is the focus of most modern shooters. I think a game where you played as, I don't know, I'd love to see an Anzac game, a game where you're a soldier from Australia or New Zealand. I'd love to see that. I think other countries have stories to tell, and it's really great to see Scotland being given a chance to be represented in a game the way they've chosen here. Now, where am I going to land? What's that? Chitin? Algae. I got some eggs there, that provides extra food, so we're alright for food actually. And we've got shells there, which I don't know what they're used for, but I like that we've got some xenomass close by as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to go just off the coast here. The capital is Deep Castle, and I see no need to change that name. I like it. Oh great, we've got an alien reef arsehole, a hydrocoral. That's going to be problematic. Okay, first things first, I'm going to automate this worker. I know it's lazy, but the AI is a lot better. You are going to stay away from them. These, I think, are new, I don't remember them, but they will constantly grow and spawn, and they'll cover the whole ocean if you let them. So I'm going to have to work to get rid of them because they're so close to the capital. This is Deep Castle, this is our floating capital. I love how it looks, especially as it grows. I love the name Deep Castle, so I'm not going to change it. And I love this new playstyle. I think it's fantastic. So without further ado, let's pick some research. See, pioneering is important because it gives you access to the trade depot, and trade is super important, but our economics advisor is suggesting we go for chemistry. It does unlock submarines, which is going to be important for us. The military advisor is suggesting we go for engineering, and that specs us into supremacy a little bit. I'm going for purity supremacy, I think, just to shake things up a bit, but we'll see. The good thing about going for purity and supremacy is that, you know, you get to basically level up your units fighting aliens, which is an advantage, especially in the early game. It's basically like going around killing the barbarians. You know, it can go wrong, you can be punished for it, but if you can pull it off, then there's gains to be made there in terms of unit veterancy. 32 turns is a long time. I don't know. Thorium reactor, combat rover. No, we need submarines, so I'm going to listen to the economic advisor. Now, production. Old Earth relic, clinic, worker gunboat. The gunboat is ranged, right? I'm going to go for... I don't know here. Cost maintenance. I'm gonna go for a gunboat. I don't normally go for a fighting unit straight off the bat, but I'm also going to not allow my explorer to wander around on his target. What I like as well about this new expansion is, it previously when someone landed you made contact with them straight away. Now that's gone, which is as it should be. These people have maintained radio silence wherever they are, somewhere up here, and so you have to discover them like you used to. I think that's really, really important. So let's see what we can discover. Got some tubers down here, that's some more food, and there's also titanium. I'm liking where we are. I'm trying not to build all my cities just on the water as well. I think there's hydrocoral brain. Yeah, we need to deal with you. Now, this guy only has one expedition module. I'm kind of reluctant to use it on an alien skeleton, but do you know what? We're going to do it. We've got some great resources around here. It seems we're going to be building inland. So what we've got here, we've got coral, geothermal, always important, floatstone, always important, algae, titanium, copper, more titanium, and tubers. I think, yeah, we're going to be building in rather than out. That takes the focus a little bit off the naval side initially, but I'm okay with that because I think there's a case to be made. You know, we're making a sensible decision. We're not, you know, on a whim deciding to build on land. Skip a few more turns on and let something finish. Get that gunboat out there. An alien drone is now under your control. That's good. That is useful. Go get that resource pod. And you can go exploring down here. I really dislike that... oh, we've discovered a station. That's good. That's kind of like how city-states used to be. They will provide us 2 energy and 2 science when we establish a trade route. That is a smaller bonus than you get from trading with other empires, but depending on where it's located, it's going to be a bit easier, I think, to safely traverse the distance without losing your trade units. Let's see what's in this resource pod. 70 energy, that'll do for me. We've discovered an artifact. This is a new system as well. You discover artifacts and you can research them for bonuses. Now I can research that straight away and get 48 culture, but I can combine it with other things, and you can sometimes unlock special units and special technologies, so I'm going to hold on to it for now. Okay, next up I'm going to... I'm tempted to get another Explorer because the early bonuses are so good, but we're going to go for a... We're going to go for a clinic. Because I know I'm going to have health problems. Let's get this gunboat working. Yeah, petroleum down here as well. This is a solid start for us. More copper. Yeah, we're in a good place. I'm just hoping that someone doesn't land too close to us before we can sort of capture all this. That's someone who's landed on water. That could be Paul Australia, it could be the Koreans. Resource Central. What are you? A progenitor device and another resource pod. So we're going to get you over there for the resource pod. You're going to continue shooting this bastard. So we can clear the trade lane. You're going to get this. Oh, so close. Another 60 energy. We're not doing so well here, but we've got some crash satellite and a progenitor device. See, at the moment that would require 18 turns just to build 2 more explorers because this is out of expedition modules, but you can unlock more expedition modules for your explorers through research, and we've got 20 culture. Nice. And we've got a collapsible family library in pristine condition. Good news. And we've discovered another potential expedition site. Okay. Virtues. We can go into industry, knowledge, prosperity, or might. 50% XP from combat. 10% food retained after a city's population grows. 10% science when healthy. 10% production towards buildings. What unlocks more science modules? That's good as well. Free worker unit and free colonist. That's it. 3 additional expeditions per explorer. I'm going to get this first, simply because 50% XP from combat, super useful. Especially if we're going purity supremacy, which I think we will. Let's keep looking, kids. I always seem to spawn in the southern hemisphere on this version of the game. I like that we seem to be on our own so far. I am enjoying that. Another resource pod. Doesn't hurt. I'm reluctant to keep my explorers out at sea as well, because you're much more likely to get fucked over at sea.
You have several artifacts in your library.
I know I do, but I'm waiting. Oh, only 1 bonus to pick that. Where are you? I saw you before. There's 1 still around there somewhere, so we'll have to look up him. Oh, going to sea might not have been a bad decision in this case. Ah, good, we found a free solar collector. Again, really important because that collects solar energy from the area you launch it, and energy will go into our bank account, and our bank account's looking reasonably healthy actually. So anywhere in this area will have an effect, but I'm going to launch it just over the city. It makes sense. There we go. That's the orbital level, and we now have a solar collector, which is going to boost our economy very, very nicely. We're going to go over here. Next we are going to produce an old Earth relic. I just like to get it out of the way, to be honest. Oh. Apparently hydrocoral brain is not a big deal. It's alright then. I won't worry about it. Someone else in the Northern Hemisphere. It's a bit of a party up there. Let's get that resource pod. Extra 23 research. I'll have that. Thank you very much. And another resource pod. See, this is the benefit of doing some serious exploration work. A floating alien structure. Oh man, we've got so much science to do. Okay, so we have reached turn 16. That's a little bit further than I planned to go. Thank you very, very much for joining us. I'm going to start a second episode in just a moment, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoy. Speak to you soon.